This is the Serrano Brothers podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Today we have on the podcast the Reverend Dr. Rustin Comer. Hey, Rustin. How you doing, man?
Good, guys. How are you?
Good.
Oh, man.
Where did you get your doctorate from?
At Claremont Graduate University.
Ooh, that was kind of like the rival school to Fuller, right?
Yeah, CST, Claremont School of Theology, is so my degree is from the Claremont Sisters, share a shared graduate program. So the five schools share a graduate program. So I would take some classes at CST, but my degree is not from CST. It's from the grad school.
So you got a PhD then?
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Rustin, tell us about yourself, man. Where are you from? What does family look like?
Yeah. So I've kind of grown up all over. I grew up in the South, Texas and Oklahoma, and left there as soon as I could and moved to Boston. I was in Boston for the first 10 years of my young adulthood, serving in the First Church. Originally grew up Southern Baptist, hardcore, third generation clergy person. My grandfather was a missionary to the Navajo, and then later to the 5 tribes of Oklahoma, and ran language missions for the entire Baptist convention in Oklahoma. And then my dad was a pastor in Texas, recently retired. And so that's the world I grew up in. Went to small Baptist liberal arts college in Oklahoma, and then joined a thing in the Baptist world that's kind of like the Peace Corps, but the Jesus-y Peace Corps. It's like Lutherans have this too, but so it was 2 years of service. That took me to Boston and did my first call there, and then ended up staying in Boston for 10 years. And in that process, theology shifted, and was looking for a new home, and found the ELCA, roundabout through the non-denominational and Catholics. And that brought me out to California to do my PhD work. And yeah, so that's kind of been the journey, and did my first ELCA call in the Valley in LA. So did that. I have a wife. I have 2 kids. My wife's a educator. I have a 9 and 12-year-old.
It goes by quick, huh?
Ages.
Yeah. And I've been here. So I had a brief stint in Minnesota. So you kind of see this all over space. Brief stint in Minnesota at a partner UCC church, and then came out to California during the middle of COVID. So I'm starting my 7th year in September.
It's already been 7 years.
Crazy, huh?
I'm just thinking, I feel like COVID was yesterday, and to hear that it's 7 years ago is surprising. So what was it about the ELCA that drew you in?
Yeah. Just a little bit more backstory. Like, my experience in Boston was very liberative on kind of 3 counts. Number one, I was working at a Southern Baptist church in Boston, which is kind of an oxymoron. There are only, in all of New England, there are only 80 Southern Baptist churches. So in all of those states, and most of them, I would now classify them as more just post-Catholic. Everybody who's in Boston is either Catholic or post-Catholic. Like there's not a lot of other, or non-religious, right? So I mean that's a very oversimplification, but that's the primary. And so in that church, I started experiencing sacramental theology before I had words for it. And in serving of communion and doing baptisms and doing this work, I was like, wait, there's something more here. And my tradition had the language of ordinances and this sort of thing. And I was like, there's more. So it started me kind of exploring simultaneously in that space. a very large portion of my large student ministry was queer, and the theology that I had didn't have space for that as well. And so my theology was God is love, and that love requires something of us and making us a place of welcome. And so how do we do that? And so I started seeing my theology shifting from it causing not conflict but questions, right,
Mm-hmm.
of the organization itself. I was an associate pastor at that point. And so and then my own kind of dissonance sent me on a journey, started reading a ton of Thomas Merton. And then as I was reading through his journals, I was reading what he was reading and realized that there was a spiritual direction program that he had helped start in Boston. So I started doing spiritual direction there. And then the school that was through was Weston Jesuit School of Theology, which is where I did, between there and Boston College, I did 2 master's degrees. And then I was like, okay, I'm Catholic, I think, maybe, I don't know. So I started playing with the Jesuit land, and then met my wife and started dating her, which is a part of the exploration, right? And was like, okay, I'm not Baptist anymore. I'm not Catholic. What am I? And so I had a mentor in Boston who had grown up in the ELCA in Chicago, was now a non-denominational pastor. And he was like, dude, you're Lutheran. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. So he kind of sent me on a journey. I started looking and was interested in it. So when I was moving across country, he sent my resume to the church where I ended up taking, a Lutheran church where I ended up taking the call. So in about a year and a half, I went through a process with SoCal Synod and Bishop Dean Nelson, and moved my ordination, and started teaching at CLU. I taught at CLU for 9 years. And so, yeah, so that it was kind of a circuitous process, but a really, really beautiful one. And I'm Lutheran because I'm deeply related to the theology, right? The theology of the cross, the core of the welcome and hospitality, and that grace first framing is like, it was already in my heartbeat, and it became a place that I was like, oh wait, there's an alignment here between my personal theology and the theology of this body that I'm fascinated with. So it's been a
Mm-hmm.
good home for us.
And you know, so you moved your ordination from the SBC to the ELCA. Um, did you have to do any kind of Lutheran retreading? Like, did they make you like go
Yeah.
through like like seminary, classes on that, or were you able just to switch it over?
Well, that's a funny question. Lutherans love their hoops, right? And so,
I was trying to ask that very without putting any
yeah,
bias, that there's lots of friction when things happen like that.
totally. So I interviewed at a Lutheran church who had gone outside of the system, because the system was not listening to them, in what they were looking for. So they went outside the system, but then they tried to work from outside the system and then bring into the system. Like, they weren't interested in leaving the ELCA. They were interested in finding a clergy person that was the right fit for them. And so in my first interview with them, they were like, hey, like, we really like you. We think you're a really good fit for us. And it was a redeveloping congregation, and my career had been in redeveloping work. And they were like, will you meet with our bishop? And so went and met with Bishop Dean. We had a great conversation. And he was like, yeah, you're Lutheran. He's like, I got to figure out how this works, because this is a very big theological gap in their mind, from the SBC to the LCA, from a on paper standpoint. And so they put forward a process that I entered into candidacy at that point, and then did the approval candidacy piece. But I have 2 master's degrees, and I was halfway through a PhD at that point, right? Like, what are you going to make me do? and it was at a Catholic school. Both of my graduate degrees are from a Catholic school where I studied liturgy there too. So it's not that different. And so what they decided, so then I did my theological review panel up in Berkeley, but when it was up on the hill, and I get in, so I've been like reading through stuff, studying, I'm an academic in that sense. And so I was like memorizing catechism and junk like that, which was, junk's probably unfair. But I get in there and all they want to talk about is my dissertation because it's all academic people, right? Who are in this theological review panel. So I spent an hour talking about my dissertation with a bunch of Lutheran professors. And they were like, yeah, so we think you need to meet with somebody on creeds because Baptists are non-creedal. And we think you need to meet with somebody on liturgy and on polity. And so I was like, okay. So they sent that back to Dean, and Dean hooked me up with the previous bishop to him, who was teaching out at CLU, and we met once on polity, and he was like, "This is dumb. They shouldn't have you be doing this. I'll sign up on it." And then he's like, "But let's stay connected." So he and I stayed connected, and then I met with a Lutheran professor from Fuller on liturgy, and he was like, "I want you to read this, this, this." And I was like, I already read it. I can give you. And I told him what it was about, and he was like, "This is dumb." And so he checked off, and then I
Was it
met
Clay
with,
Schmidt?
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, "Who was that?" Yeah, it was. And then I can't remember who the third person I met with was, and they did the same. So in the matter of a month, all of them had checked off, but then it was 8 more months before the next approval. And you know how this goes in the LCA, like they have these massive gaps. So I sat in a call process and a transition process that was basically downtime for 8 months. Like I started, no, yeah. So started in the church in December and then started working at CLU in January or February teaching. So yeah, all that kind of happened together. So yeah, it was an interesting process. I do say the space was good. Like
Mhm.
it was a space where I could become more articulate and clear about the theological transitions that had happened in me in the years prior. So by the time I was rolling into Bethel, Encino at that point, I was very articulate of the transition.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
nice.
And
But it was
Bethel was a
something.
small church when you entered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, about 35 on a Sunday in a room that sat 750, 650.
Wow. That's
and you were able to lead that congregation. To grow their numbers.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
there were
did that
about
look?
350 when I left. 9 years later.
wow.
Um,
Wow.
What did that look like?
the like that transition growth stuff, is that what you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a deep believer in redevelopment work. Actually, I'm more pro redevelopment than church planting. And I've done both but I think one is more geared towards my personality, being redevelopment. And so I think there are certain things that are consistent in redevelopment work, right? Like I frequently, when teaching on some of this stuff, would say the difference between church planting and redevelopment is in church planting, you bring your baggage into the plant in redevelopment, you unpacked their baggage as your first kind of set of work. So in those days, redevelopment was different. And I don't remember what year this changed, but in the early days of redevelopment in the ELCA, when I say early days, this was 2008,
Okay.
7, somewhere in there. 2008. The process was your church council, when they got redevelopment, had to offer their resignation so that the redeveloper could bring people in to do that. And so the council kind of lessened some power, because sometimes that's the baggage you're having to unpack. That was not the case at Bethel at all. They had really great council leadership. So I kept all the council. But you also, you just had a different set of freedoms than what you do now in terms of polity. So the first step was kind of understanding them. They had been really hurt by the synod. The synod had kind of led them into a selling process, and they weren't ready to sell. And then they voted to sell the property, and then rejected that vote. Like, the vote passed, but they called a revote as a council, and they had people bust in for this vote. And when the revote was taken, nobody came except the core people who had been there for the last 5 or 6 years. And all of them were like, no, let's give it one more go. And it was a unique space. Like, they had no debt. They had about 40,000 square feet of property space. They had a school, so that was step one. And then they crafted what they called their resurrection plan. It was kind of a 5-fold resurrection plan. One was bring in some renters to bring income so that they could build back up. So we had a Calvary Chapel that was there before I got there. And so then it gave us time, right, to grow. And I spent a ton of time focusing on the school and building that. So we went from about 15 families in the school to probably 4 or 5 years later having about 120 families in the school. And so part of that was I did every walkthrough with a new family and introduced myself as the pastor, and really leveraged that and invited them to church, and did that whole nine. And it was a very neighborhood school, so most of them were in the neighborhood, so they saw me everywhere. So we probably got about 25% of our growth off of our school and me just being hyper vigilant in that space. And then I was super in the neighborhood and in that. And then one of the big pieces of the resurrection plan was, then people are going to hate this on your podcast, was we changed worship style. Like, they were super traditional, and we paid a band to come in, and because that was what our neighborhood was looking for. If we were going to get new people in the church, we had to speak a language that they spoke. And we worked really hard at being a place that wasn't having to teach people a new language. We learned the language in order to engage them. And I'm super, like, you'll learn from me, I'm super missional. And I think the church has lost that in a lot of ways, especially the ELCA. And I think we're taking the back seat to many evangelical traditions and non-denoms who I would say that the ELCA has embedded itself in the tradition for good or bad, but theologically is very entrepreneurial. The non-denominational world is very entrepreneurial in worship and very stuck theologically. And I think we both have stuff to learn from each other.
I really like the way you put that, Rustin, saying that you were learning the language of the community, right? And how you developed your worship style, that you're not making them learn a new language. Because liturgy, the way that we do liturgy, it is its own language. It is its own set, It really is. And if you're not used to the way Lutherans do their, you know, liturgy out of the book, it, you're right. I think you're totally right about that. It is learning a new language for them, and that could be a barrier for people.
Generally is, I would
Yeah.
argue. Not could be, generally is, especially for, like, you know, I'm in a neighborhood right now where 86% of my neighbors are non-religious, not connected to a church, right? And most of them have no idea what it means to be Lutheran, much less Christian, but definitely not Lutheran. And we're called St. Matthew, which everybody just thinks we're Catholic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
maybe 1% of our neighborhood speaks the language of our classic liturgy. And yet, like, if people were to come to St. Matthew and pay attention, our ordo is the same. We've just rewritten it for, like, we don't use things that have been pre-written in a book. Like, I spend as much time writing my prayers every Sunday as I do almost writing my sermon, because it's that important to us. You know, our table is no different than any other ELCA table. We use the same, but just different language. So what I have found is that it's made room in both these places, both here and in Minnesota and in LA. It has made it accessible to all by speaking the language that is common era. Now there are people that you and I both know who would hate coming to St. Matthew. It's not the place for them. But we say all the time, like, I can give you 20 churches who are doing the liturgy the way that you want well, and that will love you well. Go there. Like, but you will find between San Francisco and us, you won't find anybody else doing what we're doing.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny.
Like,
Often when we
go ahead. Sorry.
when we get visitors, you know, because we're close, we're like 2 miles apart, right? And
Yeah.
you know, and we do have a more liturgical structure in our congregation because that's what our people are about. And
Totally.
and I will often tell people, hey, if we are not your cup of tea, St. Matthew down the road, they have a great worship service that might be more your style, you know?
And we do the same for you. Like, we're like,
Yeah.
when people are like, man, I just miss ABC, I'm like, man, go see Jeremy. Like,
Right.
it's a great church with people who will love you, and that you'll get that itch scratched that
Yep.
you're looking for. Now we do a full traditional service on Wednesday, like the full nines, robes and organs and all those fun things. But historically, right? So St. Matthew has been doing modern contemporary worship since the 80s, late 80s. And so our 80-year-olds in my pew today are the ones who moved us from the kind of liturgical frame. That not liturgical. I mean, they're all liturgical. Liturgy just means the work of the people. Let's be honest. Like, this is where the ELCA gets really stuck. And I get in conversations all the time around, like, you're not Lutheran enough, because they come in and they see how we do worship. And I'm like, sit down and talk to me about theology. Read my sermons. Read anything. Like, we are deeply Lutheran in our
that is
theology.
Such a weird
and
take for me. That it's such a weird take that the worship style is the defining factor for what it means to be a part of the whole.
Yeah, I think, honestly, every time somebody says that to me, my first response is, you're making Martin Luther turn over in his grave.
Right.
Like, I think he'd be like, what are you? I mean, like, we're talking about the first person in church history to do contemporary music, right? He stole bar songs so people would worship with him.
Yeah,
Like
right.
it's silly. Like it's silly that we're playing. And again, I I grew up on hymns. Like I to be honest, there's a lot of Lutheran hymns I don't know because I grew up on Baptist hymns. And there is some crossover, but there's a lot that I miss.
Mm.
And I appreciate traditional worship. It's not my heartbeat, and that's why I'm a good fit for St. Matthew.
Yeah.
But I do have people on my staff who it is their heartbeat, and they do Wednesday better than I do. And I'm really grateful for that.
That's great.
Hey, you've
You know,
pitch hitted for me a couple times, Rustin, and you did an awesome job. You know, my people loved you. So,
Well, thanks.
yeah.
one of
Yeah,
my
it's
contributions to like, because we do out of the red book most of the time,
mhm.
or the cranberry book is what we call it, right? The ELW. But one of my contribution is I just put in, like, I put worship notes, like,
Yeah,
this is the gathering portion. This is why we do what we do here, right? And then I put,
yeah,
like, and because I have an evangelical background, and I think one of the most common things about the way we do our worship service is that it's not Bible based. It's kind of one of the most ridiculous things, right?
hmm
And so I just put all the, like, Bible verses on the side, like, this is where this comes from, the
yeah,
Lord be with you. And also, like, I just, like,
yeah,
everything, even, and just kind of the Apostles' Creed, like, kind of just a quick explanation of what the Apostles' Creed is, and how long it's been used in worship services, just to kind of give some more context to the way we're doing what we're doing. Because I think you're right about the accessibility. If you were just to come up off the street, most people would not know, they just think it's one thing after another, and it's not, there's not a flow to it that I think those of us who see it, we see the flow of the worship service. Um,
yeah. And I also think it's one of the gifts that, all three of us come from outside the circle to be inside the circle. And I think it's one of the gifts we bring to the church that isn't often or always seen as a gift, is like we really do recognize how much translation is needed.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like, um, so yeah, I love that you do that. Like I love because I mean, I think all is fine. I think, but the process of, um, helping people understand what we're doing together as we gather in the name of Christ together, like, what is it? Like, why, what are we doing? Like, we had a week a few months ago where we did the same thing even in our space. And there were people who've been worshiping with us for years who were like, oh, I didn't realize. Like, I've personally moved the prayer of confession outside of communion because I like, theologically, for me, I don't want people to think they have to earn communion. It's a gift from
Mm.
God.
Mm.
And so we moved confession earlier in the service because I wanted to differentiate. So I named that. And some of the people who were like, I've always wondered why we didn't do communion, were like, this makes so much sense to me now. Thank you for that. So even in our world, like, that explanation is helpful, right? To tell people why we do what we do and how. And
Mhm. It's interesting. I started, we have a contemporary worship at St. John's where we drummer, all the stuff, right? And I am having to reach back into kind of my evangelical, like, to, like,
yeah,
okay, why are we doing 5 songs in a row? You know what I mean? Like, what
yeah,
is this time for? So I'm having to, and people who come from, other traditions, who are more contemporary, they get it. But
hmm
my people who've been a part of the liturgical world, they don't quite get it. So there's this teaching that you have to do, I think, in all forms of worship, where
totally.
because in order to really reach out to them, they have to be educated in what it is, you know?
Yeah, and it just brings meaning, right? Like, I think
Right.
so much of our job is meaning making.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we can go to a concert and sing together. What makes us singing together in worship different? And how are we, you know, frankly, we experience this, right? Like, so much of our lives is so fast. like the intention of slowing down and saying, hey, let's talk about why we're doing what we're doing. Like,
Yeah.
why are we singing there? Why are we singing this song? Why does it matter? Like, why does the flow of our worship matter? Why, why does the emotion of our matter? And I think part of what people are drawn to in contemporary worship is that it connects to their emotion, their body, right. Like we've forsaken the body in some ways and the emotion, that people coming off the street are hungry for.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not like, when you come here, you won't see, we're not like hand raising people. Like we do have some, like, and I love that. But most people, that's not but the language is much more emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about St. Matthew's a little bit. Tell us about the congregation. Tell us about, things going on there that you're excited about right now. And we kind of want to talk, like, we want to lead this conversation into kind of like, what's it like leading a larger congregation?
Mm.
And, but so tell us about St. Matthew's for those who don't know what it is and where you guys are and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So St. Matthew is in Walnut Creek, on the west side of Walnut Creek. East side of Walnut Creek. It has been here since 1965. So, in fact, I gotta send you this picture, Jeremy. I was going through some files recently, and Jeremy's church gave us, when we were planted, our first altar candles and cross.
Cool.
So there's been a long history between Jeremy's church and our church, which we both love and still honor.
Absolutely.
So been here since 1965. This was like Walnut. It was an adjacent like sub town that hadn't been built out yet in Walnut Creek when it was planted. So the only thing on our property between us and Mount Diablo was our little octagonal building we used to have, and everything was orchards from there to the mountain. And then everything around us was built in like the 70s and 80s. So it's a newer community in Walnut Creek in that sense. As Walnut Creek expanded, it's now old school. So yeah, so I think I'm the fourth or fifth lead pastor here.
Oh, wow.
In its life. So it's had a history of long pastorates. It again, like, it has really taken its neighborhood seriously. So we're in the Northgate neighborhood. We became very much a Northgate community church, where so many of our people were walking. The church planter here, that's how he started. He walked door to door, old school, and built relationships. And so that was the rootedness of this space. In the late 80s, early 90s is when I think we started kind of speaking a different language. We were still very rooted in the ELCA at that point, but started doing more contemporary things. At that point, the church had grown to I think 2 services at that point. And so they were kind of doing the contemporary traditional split for a while with Jack Nemi. He was a big piece of that. And then worship leaders who worked with him were a big piece of that. In Nemi, we built all the kind of new buildings. So, built a sanctuary that seats 580, 590, something like that. And then when Jack left, Kevin came, and Kevin, we saw a big kind of an exponential growth from that point. The property had shifted where it could. We built all the other education space under Kevin. And the church really grew for about 10 years to where I think we were at 4 or 5 worships at one point. And then Kevin left in 2017. And then we were interim world for till 2020. 2013 saw some pretty significant decline at St. Matt's around family ministry loss. So I think we lost like 150 families in that year which is pretty significant. um,
Wow.
so right now, like we worship, we had 3 worship services, 2 on Sunday, um, 1 on Wednesday. Um, in a week, we worship about 450, 400 live between those services. And then on average, like we monthly serve about 800 to 850 um, people, adults. Like we don't count. This is so weird. We don't count kids here. And it's just a decision we made in terms of like how we do our counting. So we count adult bodies. Um, so yeah, it's a rich worship community. A Walnut Creek is fascinating to me. It's a what I would have called a suburban community. COVID really changed that. So like it actually has a new delineation that is called urban adjacent, because so many people move from San Francisco out to Walnut Creek that the community, and between 2019 and 2021, our entire neighborhood, 45% of it turned over. And older families sold out of their homes and younger families bought in. So the schools are popping and it has, good education, but downtown is like insane. And like that, I think I read yesterday that 6 million visitors, last year, non-residents, 6 million visitors or something like that. Like it's the place to shop and to eat and to have entertainment. So yeah, that's kind of the world that we're in. We see our neighborhood as a 10-mile radius, so that's our focus. So coming on this side of the tunnel of Oakland, the Benicia Bridge, on this side of Benicia Bridge, on this side of Kirker Pass, and then this side of Mount Diablo. So that's kind of how we draw our barrier. And we are really kind of a regional church. As far as I know, and we've done a little bit of research on this, we are the only progressive, open and affirming, contemporary program to corporate sized church outside of San Francisco.
Well, yeah, wow.
So if you're a young family looking for all of the things that a program sized church gives, like children's ministries and youth ministries, and where your friends can bring their queer friends, or your queer kids can show up and be loved, we're all, as far as I know, we're it outside of San Francisco.
Yeah, I don't know of any within 10 miles of you,
Yeah.
Yeah, or even
so that's kind of been
yeah.
That's been our delineator. Like the nearest one that I have access to is one in Napa, and we hang out with them a little bit, friend wise, when I'm up drinking wine. But
Yeah.
so that's unique, right? Like I would say that's the uniqueness that keeps drawing people to us, is that we have a lot to offer programmatically, and yet we're this blend. Like we work really hard at being entrepreneurial, both theologically and in worship. And so people are going to hate that I use the word entrepreneurial. I don't really care. It's the best word to describe.
What does that mean to you? When you say entrepreneurial, what do you mean by that?
Like for example, our staff talks a lot about understanding ourselves more like a startup, where we have a lot of flexibility, a lot of creativity. We pivot really well and quickly. And we're very externally focused. We love our people, and I think we're really great at care, thanks to Tammy and our community care ministry stuff. But like, we've worked really hard not to be a country club community.
The older word for that was missional, right? If you were a part of
exactly.
So
Um,
what can you give us an example of like how you've done that before? Like you said, you're able to pivot real quickly. And I see larger congregations as like big cruise liners. They're hard to steer. Like, they're hard to move, right? And
Yeah.
so what does that look like for you? Is there an example of how that happened?
Yeah. Great question. Um, so I would say we have not reached the side, like the church I was in Minnesota was very much like what you're talking about. I mean, it was 5,000 in worship on a Sunday, 3,000 in worship on a Sunday was big. And so it did take an act of Congress to pivot that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're still small enough that there's freedom to that. But um, example, like we've killed programming, like we were doing this big concert series, for example. And the point of the concert series was to draw our neighbors. And it was, local musicians on our lawn, food and beer trucks in the summer, every Tuesday. We did it for 2 years and had people loved it. But what we said about that was that the purpose of this was to reach our neighbors and it's only reaching our community. We're not doing that. So we cut it. And then we took that money and invested it in other outreaches because, and it was one of my favorite things. I miss it. Like we loved it. It was a great way to chill and hang in the summer and be connected as a community. Um,
Now, when you say reach your neighbors, what do you mean by that? Do you mean was the intention to draw people into the worshiping life of the community, or was it just to have people come and experience this thing?
yes to both of those.
Okay.
Um, so So when I think about outreach, kind of as a map, like where like there's level one outreach and level one outreach is exposure. So we do like 4 massive events every year, um, that are all about exposure. And we talk about in that, what we talk about from our vision is that St. Matthew longs to be a platform for joy for our neighbors. And so we want people to know that they can have fun, that they are loved, that this is a safe campus, that their children are loved, that their grandparents are loved, that this is a place you can bring your family. And we have thought through the intricacies of what it means for you to belong no matter what. So belong before believe, that's the whole piece of that. But we're also super intentional. Like when you come in and you're doing our trunk or treat, which will come up in a couple months and we'll have 4,000 people on the property. The first thing we do is we give you a little goodie bag with information about who we are and when we worship and what matters to us, and that that we are an inclusive community because we want our neighbors to know that exists. We're like, a uniqueness about Walnut Creek is it's actually for California pretty, when it comes to Christians, conservative.
mm-hmm.
The churches around us that are of size are very conservative churches. So our neighbors who are 86% unchurched think that their only option is that, the kind of Christian nationalism sort of vibed places. So we are very articulate about, hey, there are other options and we're one of them. Come check us out. So that's kind of level one. And then we're very intentional that when we see those people come in, that we connect with that, right? Like, hey, like, yeah, you came in through our trunk or treat. Let us get you connected in other ways. So the intent is, yeah, that this is a place that they can belong, but that is not the reason we're doing these things. Like we are trying to build the kingdom of God in our neighborhood in every way possible. It's not about you becoming Lutheran or becoming a part of St. Matthew. It's about how are you meeting God through connection and through us, and how are we helping live out God's kingdom now here alongside you. So we do a ton of partnership with organizations that aren't religious. Like behavioral health is one that we've been partnering with for the last 2 years. They are a badass organization that is helping people understand their own wholeness. And that's a big piece for us. We long to help people become more whole within our community. And so we partner with organizations to do that, and we'll point people to them, just like I point them to Jeremy. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I'm getting ranty.
No,
Sorry.
no, that was great. You know, when everything feels important, how do you prioritize what's important for your congregation?
Yeah. And I would say this is something that larger churches have to do, because there's so many more people that if you just do everything, you'll wipe yourself out pretty quick. So, so for example, how do we do that? We do that around strategy. So we have 4 strategic pillars that we've been in for the last 3 years, and that will continue forward because they've been reorienting for us. And that is to communicate God's radical love, to nurture family wholeness, child, youth, and family wholeness, to power positive aging, and to deeply form lives. And these 4 things are the things that we do. And if it doesn't fit within one of those, we say no to it. And it can't be like some random tangential fit. Like you've got to be like, if you're a lay person coming in and want to do something, in the thing that you have to fill out to say, hey, I want to do something, you have to show how you are connecting to this thing, because that's where we've committed our money and our energy and our time and our talent and our treasure to go to. And so, and we talk about those things all the time. Could everybody in our church name them? No, but they could get pretty close. That this is where, and same with our mission partners, like in our neighborhood, like in the redevelopment of St. Matthew, one of the things we did was we did a lot of listening to our community, meaning our church. So I talk about community and neighborhood. So community is internal, neighborhood's external, and how I frame talk. In our community, we did, I did 256 one-on-ones over the course of 6 months, and listened to what people were at, where they wanted, what their heartbeat was, and felt really clear about what moved the heartbeat of St. Matthew. But then realized that between 2019 and 21, that our neighborhood had changed, and we didn't know who our neighborhood was anymore. So we started doing a ton of research about our neighborhood, researching all that. Like there are 1,956 nonprofits within 10 miles of my property, of which we were partners with 0.001%. And so we started doing that research and said, what are the things that the Walnut Creek and surrounding community care about? How do their nonprofits line up? Where are there more nonprofits than other? And family systems was one. There were more nonprofits around family systems. And that's been a heartbeat of St. Matthew since its founding. It started with a family ministry when it launched. So it's been a big piece. So that was a connector. And I was like, okay, this is where our hearts and our gifts and abilities align with the heart of our neighborhood. So we're going to spend some focus there, right? Same thing on aging. Like that was a big piece for us. And most churches do ministry to senior adults by default because that's who they have. And we said, we're no longer going to do that. We're going to do it with deep intention. And so what would it look like for us to build what we call our 3rd gen ministry in the same way we would build a student ministry, and be really intentional about everything we do, right? And we saw that in our neighborhood, and we were like, yep. So now we have like 10 core partners who help us achieve 3rd gen wholeness. Sorry.
So no. So with all of this, is there any, like, to people listening to this and they're like, God, I love everything you're talking about, but I don't even have the basic framework to start this. Are there any books that really helped form you in your leadership?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. So I am a deep lover of all things Steinke. So his, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my bookshelf right here. I'm going to move my camera and look for a second just so I can name these books.
Is it Peter
Um,
Steinke? Is that who you're talking about?
yeah, Peter Steinke. Um, he does the church as a body system that is really helpful. There's a whole series that he does. And I'll send you, and you guys can put them in notes or whatever, a list of that. On my bookshelf, which is right beside me, being a redeveloper, this has been a piece for me that is, I have well over 10,000 hours in this. Like, so half my bookshelf is work around organizational leadership and these sorts of things. Um, so Roxburgh, Alan, missional map making is awesome. Thinking in Systems, that's a new one by Danella Meadows. That's great because I mean, so much of what I do is around systems processing. I did a certification in design thinking. That's really helpful too. Like, you don't have to do a certification in that. That's a waste of your time. Don't do that. But go read some books on design thinking,
Was this the
which is
Stanford
just,
design?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Read a lot on Theory U. It's a great process to help people kind of work through that.
And I think it's
The
important to say, Rustin, that like one of the things pastors have to be reading this stuff.
Oh my gosh, they better be.
Right? I mean, it's one of those things where we have to be leading our congregations in the way we have to be leading them, and we have to learn about leadership as a part of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're gonna amp me up. The clergy have got to be reading more, listening, reading, like, and not just like books on leader, like everything. Read more novels. Read what is out there. Find new language. Explore. Like, listen. I mean, I know you guys are the same way. I listen to at least 15 consistent podcasts a week, and then probably another 5 or 6 a week on top of that that are randomized for me. And everything from leadership to science to theology. And most of them are outside our tradition, right? Like, because when it comes to, again, entrepreneur, when it comes to entrepreneurial reality, it's like you're learning best practices. And what make best practices best is that they work like over time, over space. And so exploring that, other thing that I think is super important is we got to go to other churches. And that's hard when we're small church pastors because you're squeaking by. But like, if you haven't gone to the largest churches in your community and worshiped with them incognito, you're missing out because you're not understanding what the heartbeat of your neighborhood is. Like, what's drawing people to that? You'll feel it. Like, when you go in, like, there's a church nearby us that theologically, man, I could be no further from than you can imagine. And I've gone there twice, and I can see why people are interested in it. Some for good reasons and some for bad, right? Like, what draws them. And so it's helpful to, like, expanding ourselves and understanding, I think, is the only way forward for the church. And it starts with us, right? I mean, you guys posted, I can't remember if it was you, Jeremy, or Josh, that posted an article of like the 10 things about a church that, they need for change kind of thing recently. And I read, it was great. And I posted on whoever's, I should know. I know you're different people.
It was
I
mine.
apologize.
It's okay.
Okay.
I don't, yeah. It doesn't bother us.
And so I post a lot, so I missed that. But the question I had, which I didn't put because I didn't want to start a thing on your Facebook, is like, how many clergy people take that seriously? That begins with them. We want it to begin with our church. It's not. Like, you cannot lead where you haven't gone. And we have to go there. We have to do the things. And if we're not willing, and it's hard, right? Like it takes a lot of time and energy, and it shifted my priorities as I learned how to do these things. But a lot of them are way easier now because I've been doing them so long, right? I've been doing redevelopment since my first call was 18. I was a youth pastor at a Chinese Baptist church in Oklahoma City. And that was redevelopment work. Didn't know it then, but that's what it was. It was working with second generation Chinese students while their parents were in a Chinese worship service.
Yeah.
And launching that from nothing.
Yeah. Hey man, we're at 55 minutes. We usually only go about 45 minutes here. At the very end of it with people, we like to ask some questions. You don't really have to think about them. Just answer them. This is all quick answers kind of stuff. Okay.
Right.
Are you ready for it? Okay. What food could you eat every day?
Thai food.
What's your favorite movie genre?
Drama. I don't like happy endings. So movies that are like big dramas. That's horrible to say out loud. My wife loves happy endings, but I don't. Yeah.
Salty, sweet, or savory?
Salty or savory.
Besides the Bible, because every pastor says the freaking Bible, what book would you take with you on a deserted island?
Oh. God. This is not the answer you're looking for, but I would probably take like music over a book. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
great,
I would,
what fills
some John
your
Baptiste, that would be my CD of choice, just playing for the rest of my life.
Yeah, he's so damn talented.
I love John Baptiste, man. Just seriously.
Going to the show in October. Can't wait.
What fills your cup?
People, man. Like, I am such an extrovert, and I love spending time with people is my drug. I love it.
What depletes your cup?
I was just talking to Mike about this morning. Like, when HR becomes 80% of my job.
Yeah. What's
details too? I'm not a big detail person.
What's one piece of good advice that somebody's given to you?
My grandfather always said, "Don't let anyone tell you no who doesn't have the power to tell you yes."
Oof. What does rest look like for you?
Man, that is my discovery right now. I am that is my spiritual journey right now. I am discovering that. It looks like creativity. It looks like people. Rest for me doesn't look like laying around at home. It looks like being with people, but not in a work vibe, just community and slow and long conversation, non-hurried reality. But to be fair, like, the quickest answer to that is, I don't know. I'm learning that. Like, I'm a workaholic. I love action. And that question has been my spiritual journey for the last year and a half.
What's your favorite holy place?
Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Santa Barbara are my two holy places.
And on that last day, when you enter heaven, what do you hope that God will say to you?
Thanks for loving people.
Rustin, the Reverend Dr. Rustin Comer, thank you so much for being with us. This has been the Serrano Brothers podcast. Thanks for visiting, friends.